aficionados, welcome back to Movies on the Brain, where today we're diving headfirst into the heart-pounding world of Bullitt, directed by Peter Yates and starring the incomparable Steve McQueen. Strap yourselves in because this review is going full throttle. It's Jason here, and I've just experienced Bullitt for the very first time. Picture this, the cool breeze of 1960s San Francisco, the screech of tires on asphalt, and McQueen's steely gaze cutting through the fog of crime. Bullitt isn't just a film, it's a visceral experience of raw suspense and unyielding determination. Yates' direction keeps you on the edge of your seat, while Queen's portrayal of Lieutenant Frank Bullitt sets the standard for cinematic coolness that few have matched since. This review is it's filled with spoilers because, like the film itself, we're diving into the deep twists and turns that define this genre-defining classic. Join me as we dissect every exhilarating detail of Bullitt in a way only Movies on the Brain can. Grab your popcorn and let's roll, because this is one ride you don't want to miss. Now, how did it do in the box office? Well, Bullitt opened in theaters on October 17th, 1968, with a budget of $4 million. During its theatrical run, it earned $42.3 million, which would be adjusted to around $283 million as of 2023. Bullitt currently sits at number 2 on the all-time domestic box office for PG movies, only trailing 1970's Patton by $20.2 million. Bullitt was only released internationally on December 10th, 2020 in Australia and May 18th, 2022 in New Zealand, and earned a total of $177 internationally. Now let's get to this plot. On Friday night in Chicago, On a Friday night in Chicago, mobster Johnny Ross briefly meets his brother Pete after fleeing the outfit. The next morning, San Francisco Police Department Detective Frank Bullitt and his team Delgatti and Stanton are tasked by ambitious politician Walter Chalmers with guarding Ross over the weekend until he can be presented as a witness to the Senate subcommittee hearing on organized crime Monday morning. The detectives are told that he is in a cheap hotel on the Embarcadero at 1 a.m. on Sunday. While Stanton is phoning Bullitt to say Chalmers and a friend want to come up, Ross unchains the room door. Two hitmen burst in, shooting Stanton and Ross. Chalmers holds Bullitt responsible. Ross dies from his wounds, but Bullitt conceals the death to keep the investigation open, sending the body to the morgue as a John Doe. An informant says that Ross was in town because he stole millions of dollars from the Chicago outfit. Bullitt also finds out that he made a long-distance phone call to the hotel in San Mateo. Driving his Ford Mustang, Bullitt is followed by a Dodge Charger driven by the two hitmen. An extended chase scene ensues through the streets of San Francisco to Brisbane. Eventually, the Charger crashes into a gas station, killing its occupants in a fiery explosion. Bullitt and Delgatti are confronted by their superior, Captain Sam Bennett, as well as Chalmers, who is assisted by San Francisco PD Captain Baker. After being served a writ of habeas corpus, Bullitt reveals that Ross has died. Bennett ignores the writ as it's Sunday and lets Bullitt investigate the lead of the long-distance phone call to San Mateo. No car, Bullitt gets a ride from his girlfriend Kathy. At the hotel, he finds the woman who was phoned garroted in her room. Kathy follows the police to the crime scene and is horrified. While examining the victim's luggage, Bullitt and Delgatti discover a travel brochure for Rome, as well as traveler's checks made out to an Albert and Dorothy Rennick. Bullitt requests their passport applications from Chicago. It turns out Chalmers sent Bullitt to guard a doppelganger, Albert Rennick, a used car salesman from Chicago, while his wife Dorothy was staying in San Mateo. Bullitt realizes that Ross was playing the politically ambitious Chalmers by using Rennick as a decoy so he could slip out of the country Sunday night. Gotti and Bullitt watch the Rome-bound passengers at San Francisco International Airport. However, the real Ross, on Rennick's passport, has switched to an earlier London flight. Bullitt boards the plane, but after it is ordered to return to the terminal, the mobster escapes. In the passenger terminal, Ross kills a deputy sheriff before being shot dead by Bullitt. Silent Chalmers leaves after viewing the scene. Monday morning, Bullitt arrives home to find Kathy asleep in his bed, having chosen to stay. Now let's check out the cast and some of their other uh, works. Steve McQueen as Frank Bullitt. Before Steve McQueen passed in November of 1980, his other roles included Steve Andrews in The Blob, Captain Virgil Hiltz in The Great Escape, and Ralph Thorson in The Hunter. Robert Vaughn as Walter Chalmers. Prior to Robert Vaughn's passing in November of 2016, other roles of his included Chester A. Gwynn in The Young Philadelphians, Ross Webster in Superman 3, and Napoleon Solo in the TV show The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Jacqueline Bisset as Kathy. Other roles for Jacqueline Bisset include Vicky Cartwright in The Sweet Ride, Monique Delacroix in Save the Last Dance 2, and James LeBeau in the TV show Nip Tuck. Don Gordon as Inspector Delgatti. Don Gordon unfortunately passed away in April of 2017, but other roles of his included Rooney in The Gamblers, Police Lieutenant Dickerson in the TV show Knight Rider, and Ryan in The Exorcist 3. Robert Duvall as Weisberg. Other roles for Robert Duvall include Harry Hogg in Days of Thunder, Lou Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, and Joseph Palmer in The Judge. Simon Oakland as Captain Sam Bennett. Unfortunately, Simon Oakland passed away in August of 1983, but his other roles included Carl Mandy in the TV show Gunsmoke, Lieutenant Schrank in West Side Story, and Tony Vincenzo in The Night Strangler. Norman Fell as Captain Baker. Norman Fell unfortunately passed away December of 1998, but some of his other roles included Bill in Airport 1975, Mac Turner in Transylvania 6 5000, and Detective Mayer in the TV show The 87th Precinct. Carl Reindel as Sergeant Carl Stanton. Unfortunately, Carl Reindel passed away in September of 2009, but some of his other roles included Kenneth M. Taylor in Tora Tora Tora, Lieutenant Comro in the Andromeda Strain, and Ben Whitley in the TV show Rawhide. Felice Orlandi as Albert Rennick. Unfortunately, Felice Orlandi passed away in May of 2003, but prior to his passing, some of his other roles included Vince Fawcett in The Harder They Fall, Mr. Reddick in The Long Riders, and the Warden in Another 48 Hours, which that was his final film role. Pat Ranella as Johnny Ross. Unfortunately, Pat Ranella passed away in November of 2012. Some of his other roles included Perry in Ride on Sunset Strip, Claude Sadi in Dayton's Devils, and Nikos in A Piece of the Action. George Stanford Brown as Dr. Willard. George Stanford Brown has also been Officer Terry Webster in the TV show The Rookies, Professor Sinclair in House Party 2, and Robert Wheeler in The Man. Justin Tarr as Eddie. Unfortunately, Justin Tarr passed away in July of 2012, but some of his other roles included Private Tully Pettigrew in Massacre Harbor and the TV show The Rat Patrol, and Ernie Gordon in the TV movie Attica. Vic Tayback as Pete Ross. Unfortunately, Vic Tayback passed away in May of 1990, but some of his other roles included Mel Sharples in the TV show Alice, Calvin Carruthers in Blood and Lace, and Carface Carruthers in All Dogs Go to Heaven. Pete Gange as Mike. Unfortunately, Pete Gaines passed away in May of 1988, but some of his other roles included Whitey in the FBI story, Samuel N. Poole in The Crowded Sky, and Lieutenant Hagerman in North by Northwest. Ed Peck as Westcott. Unfortunately, Ed Peck passed away in September of 1992. Some of his other roles included Officer Kirk in the TV show Happy Days, the cop shotgun in Cheech and Chong's next movie, and Jack Jingley in The Last Unicorn. Robert Lipton as Chalmers' aide. Other roles for Robert Lipton include Richard Mason in the TV show Walker, Texas Ranger, Dr. Jeff Ward in the TV show As the World Turns, and the WNTW chopper pilot in Die Hard 2. John Aprea as a hitman. Other roles for John Aprea include young Salvatore Tessio in The Godfather Part 2, Nick Katsopoulos in the TV show Full House, and Senator Dilly in Cybertracker. Bill Hickman as another hitman. Unfortunately, Bill Hickman passed away in February of 1986, but some of his other roles included Patton's driver in Patton, Bill Molderig in The French Connection, and Bo in The Seven Ups, which that was his final role. Al Checo as a desk clerk. Al Checo unfortunately passed away in July of 2015. Some of his other roles included Bernie Stein in The Party, Byron in Angel in My Pocket, and Tim Lundy in How to Beat High Cost of Living. Honestly, now I get why people like this movie. Steve McQueen just oozes charisma all throughout this movie. Whether he's driving, walking, talking, even if he's just standing there, just looking at the camera. Got this cloud of mystery surrounding him. And that extended chase scene lived up to expectations that I had read prior. What a well shot movie, too, from the car chase to the murders in the hotel to the foot chase at the airport. Every shot was fucking freaking gorgeous. I can't believe it took me this long to watch this movie. That's what this channel is about, me watching movies I haven't seen and being in awe of how I could have never seen such a great movie. The twist of Bullitt being ordered to protect the wrong person was actually a great twist that I never saw coming. Now let's check out some fun facts and trivia about this movie. Several items of clothing worn by Steve McQueen received a boost in popularity thanks to this film, with being desert boots, a trench coat, a blue turtleneck sweater, and most famously a brown tweed jacket with elbow patches. Although Steve McQueen was credited with driving during the chase sequence, it was shared by McQueen and Bud Ekins, one of Hollywood's best stunt drivers. From the interior shots looking forward inside the Mustang, it's easy to see which one is driving. When McQueen is driving, the rearview mirror is down, reflecting his face. When Ekins is driving, so is his face. So his face is hidden. While filming the scene where the giant airliner taxis just above Steve McQueen, observers were shocked that no double was used. Asked if the producers could have found a dummy, McQueen Riley replied they did. Bullitt's reverse burnout during the chase scene actually wasn't in the script. Steve McQueen had mistakenly missed the turn. The footage was still kept, though. The device used to transmit the photos of the Rennick couple over the telephone line was one of the original facsimile machines, and in fact the device from which the generic word fax was derived. It is the Xerox Magnafax telecopier introduced by Xerox in 1966 and considered a revolutionary technological breakthrough. Until this device appeared, facsimile machines were large, heavy, and difficult to operate. Bill Hickman, the backup hitman and driver of the Charger, was highly experienced in driving stunts and in racing. 13 years before this film, being a good friend of actor and budding race driver James Dean, he was accompanying Dean to a race in Salinas, California, driving Dean's station wagon and car trailer while Dean drove ahead in his Porsche Spider. Dean died in an accident on the way, and it was Bill Hickman who extracted Dean's body from the wreck. Two Mustangs and two Dodge Chargers were used for the famous chase scene. Both Mustangs were owned by the Ford Motor Company and part of a promotional loan agreement with Warner Brothers. The cars were modified for the high-speed chase by veteran auto racer Max Balchowski. Stunt coordinator Perry Lofton got Bud Akins to drive the Mustang for the bulk of the scenes. Both of the Dodges were junked after the filming, as was one of the Mustangs. The other less banged-up Mustang was purchased by a Warner Brothers employee after all production and post-production was completed. The car ended up in New Jersey a few years later, where Steve McQueen attempted to buy it. The owner refused to sell, and the car now sits in a barn and has not been driven until recently when it was used by Ford to promote the 2018 Bullitt Mustang when it was revealed at the Detroit International Auto Show. Several years, Robert Vaughn actively considered going into politics. To his dismay, he discovered that people couldn't take him seriously or found him untrustworthy, as they remembered his oily performance in this film. According to Peter Yates, Steve McQueen made a point to keep his head near the open car window during the famous chase scene so that audiences would be reassured that it was he, not a stuntman, who was driving. At the time, San Francisco was not a big filmmaking mecca, and Mayor Joseph L. Alioto was very keen to promote it as such. Consequently, this movie enjoyed a freedom of movement around the city. It'd be hard to come by today, including giving up an entire hospital wing for filming, closing down multiple streets for 3 weeks for a car chase scene, and taking over San Francisco International Airport at night. In the restaurant scenes, live band playing in the background is Meridian West, a jazz quartet that Steve McQueen had seen performing at the famous Sausalito restaurant, the Trident. Robert Vaughn received the script and didn't like it. He felt that there was no plot nor a sensible storyline. Steve McQueen insisted Vaughn do the film, but he refused until the studio finally offered him so much money he finally said yes. The famous car chase scene lasts 10 minutes and 53 seconds. The film's chase scene wasn't originally in the script. In the first draft of this movie, adapted from Robert L. Fish's novel The Mute Witness, Detective Frank Bullitt was a Boston policeman who ate a lot of ice cream and never solved a case. The book had originally been bought with Spencer Tracy in mind, but with Tracy's death, the property fell into the hands of Steve McQueen and producer Philip D'Antoni. D'Antoni edited the chase and changed the location to San Francisco. Safe house scenes were filmed in and around the Kennedy Hotel at 226 the Embarcadero near Howard Street. That building, along with the two-level freeway behind it, were torn down as a part of a major development on the waterfront after the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake. Steve McQueen based his character on San Francisco homicide inspector Dave Toschi, made famous for his work on the Zodiac killings. McQueen had a copy made of Toschi's custom fast draw shoulder holster. The cops that Steve McQueen rode around with wanted to test his metal, so they took him to a morgue. I had to admit that the star was pretty cool when he showed up eating an apple. The late Robert Vaughn repeatedly said that his performance in this film was his best and contains the work of which he was most proud. Although Bonnie and Clyde had popularized the use of squibs to simulate gunshot wounds a year earlier, this was one of the first films to incorporate them with blood packets. Initially, the car chase scene was supposed to be scored, but Lalo Schifrin suggested that no music be added to that sequence, pointing out that the soundtrack was powerful enough as it was. After Steve McQueen lost control of his car and smashed into a parked vehicle, his then wife, Nellie Adams, begged Peter Yates to use stuntmen. So when McQueen reported for duty to find stuntman Bud Ekins sitting in his car, dressed as McQueen, he was furious. Bud Ekins, who drives his Mustang, also did the motorcycle jump for Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. Director Peter Yates called for speeds of about 75 to 80 miles per hour, but the cars, including the ones containing the camera, reached speeds of over 110 miles per hour. Filming of the chase scene took 3 weeks, resulting in 9 minutes and 44 seconds of footage. They were denied permission to film on the Golden Gate Bridge. Much was made at the time and over the years since of Lieutenant Bullitt's stylish, casual attire of a turtleneck worn with a sports coat, slack, and suede-like shoes. Since the majority of the portion of the film takes place over a Saturday and Sunday, this was actually in keeping with some police departments' tradition of a more relaxed dress code on weekends for plainclothes officers. Bullitt is first seen at work when meeting Chalmers on a Friday morning, wearing a traditional conservative navy suit under his trench coat, with a white shirt, dark tie, and dress shoes. These clothes were actually supplied by a menswear shop in London, England, Doug Haywood's. Peter Yates' tailor. Director Peter Yates was personally selected for this movie by Steve McQueen because Yates had filmed a realistic car chase scene through the streets of London in robbery. About 50% of the film was shot silent with background noise, sound effects, and spoken dialogue looped in post-production. In January 2018, the original green Mustang GT from the movie was brought out into the spotlight after being in hiding for decades by the New Jersey owners on stage at the Detroit Motor Show with Ford to introduce the new 2019 Bullitt Mustang. The original typed letter on Steve McQueen's Solar production company letterhead asking to buy his car back in 1977 was also on hand. No sets were built for the film. Frank Bullitt's car is a 1968 Ford Mustang 390 GT 2x2 fastback. Bad guys drive a 1968 Dodge Charger 440 Magnum. The Charger is just barely faster than the Mustang with a 13.6 second quarter mile compared to the Mustang's 13.8 second quarter mile. Traditionally, car chases are filmed by second units, but Peter Yates insisted on doing it himself. This was partly because he knew that Steve McQueen would be performing a lot of the stunts himself. 2008, Motor Trend magazine did an article promoting the 40th anniversary edition Bullitt Mustang. Because Dodge had brought back the Charger, the article featured a prominent promotional gimmick of photographing the 2008 Mustang and the 2008 Charger, stimulating the famous chase scene with riders breaking down the chase moment by moment to explain each car's strengths and weaknesses. Bullitt was originally rated M for mature audiences under the rating system instituted by the MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America, for films released after December 31st, 1967. This rating was replaced by PG, parental guidance suggested, and the film was later re-released in theaters and on DVD and Blu-ray with that rating. In an interview about the film, Robert Vaughn admitted to not fully understanding the screenplay. However, he said his salary for Bullitt largely compensated. Bill Hickman, who drives the Dodge Charger, actually did drive the Charger in the movie. Driving screen scenes netted him additional stunt work, which included yet another classic car chase scene for the French Connection. In 1973, he drove the Pontiac Bonneville as Beau in the chase of Roy Schneider's character Buddy, driving the Pontiac Ventura Sprint and in the Seven Ups. Peter Yates hired a local trucking company for some background shots, most notably the scene where the Dodge Charger crashes into the gas station, but sent back the initial truck because it was red. He didn't want any red vehicles in the movie because it would detract from the blood. A blue truck was dispatched in its place. The editing of the famous car chase scene was not without difficulties. Ralph Rosenblum wrote in 1979 that those who care about such things may know that during the filming of the climactic chase scene in Bullitt, an out-of-control car filled with dummies tripped a wire which prematurely sent a costly setup in flames, and that editor Frank P. Keller salvaged the near catastrophe with a clever and unusual juxtaposition of images that made the explosion appear to go off on time. That's why a careful view of the footage during the final explosion shows the Dodge Charger visibly behind the flames. The remaining Mustang used in the movie sold at auction on January 9th, 2020 for $3.74 million. Kathy is shown working in an architectural studio on water flow calculations for modernistic and angular fountain. This is an actual model of a sculpture titled Quebec Libre by Canadian sculptor Armand Vaillancourt. The monumental fountain was being studied at the time the film was being made. The fountain was built and completed 3 years later in 1971, not in black as the model shows, but in natural gray concrete. It may be seen today at the Embarcadero Center in downtown San Francisco across the street from the Ferry Building. The location of the office on the back side of Telegraph Hill is in is in part of the extended and redeveloped Embarcadero near Levi Strauss Plaza. In the first scenes, when the guy is leaving the garage, one might notice just as credits are running, Steve McQueen's green Jaguar D-Type parked in the garage. This is the first film produced under Steve McQueen's production company Solar. One of the first things Peter Yates did when he got the job was persuade Warner Brothers to buy him a lightweight Arriflex camera that he could use for all of his handheld footage. This was Peter Yates' first American film. Frank Bullitt, one use of the word bullshit, is one of the first uses of strong profanity in a mainstream Hollywood studio production after the abandonment of the Hayes production code several years before. There were two Ford Mustangs used in the movie, one of which was used in the majority of the hero jump shots and ultimately ended up crashing into a ravine, and another of which wasn't wrecked during filming. The crashed car turned up in a junkyard in Mexico. It is literally a pile of rust. The other one was repaired after filming and sold, passing through two owners before it was purchased by a Robert Kiernan in 1974 for $6,000. Mustangs were cheap and plentiful back then, so it was used as a daily driver until it was parked up with mechanical issues in 1980. Robert and son Sean began putting it back together in the early 2000s before life took over and the restoration stalled. Robert passed away in 2014 and left the car to Sean. He contacted Ford around that time and the mystery of the original movie car was solved. Honestly, I feel like that's a lot of fun facts right there. There's a lot more, but I feel like that's all I should really do. So thank you for joining me on Movies on the Brain as I delved into the high octane world of Bullitt. From its gripping car chases to Steve McQueen's iconic performance, this classic thriller continues to captivate audiences. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more deep dives into cinema's finest. Until next time, keep those reels rolling and your popcorn ready. This is Jason with Movies on the Brain, signing off.